Is that it? It's the only reason that we're closing Parris Island is because we can't shower together? Like, I feel like we could figure that out. Let me interrupt you. How many showers at female boot camp? Welcome to another episode of the Mac and Clay Show. We have a special guest with us today, Rochelle, Marine, Corporal, Afghanistan veteran. And today we're going to talk about the news that is sending massive ripples through the Marine Corps community with the news that there could be a closure of Parris Island and possibly San Diego MCRD. And so, Clay, why don't you hit us with a rundown of what military.com and a few other websites just released?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Rochelle, for being here. We definitely want your perspective on this stuff. So this article comes from the Business Insider, and they state a lot of things in there. A lot of things jump out at me about why they're making this decision, when it's supposed to happen. And they're not saying that they're going to necessarily close both of these bases, but they're saying that based on a law that's in place, Parris Island has to be fully transitioned within 5 years to accept co-ed training, and San Diego has to be fully transformed in 8 years to accept co-ed training in all aspects. So what I got from that is it's coming from the top. This isn't necessarily the headquarters Marine Corps' call. So it's coming from some politicians that I feel like maybe want to treat it like a social experiment. The current locations don't meet the standards, right? We've all been to Marine Corps boot camp on the respective sides, right? I mean, so I don't think that you could see women in that squad bay along with men when you just have shower heads hanging around the top and everybody's showering together. Like, I mean, we know how it was. Right?
The co-ed rain room doesn't work out, I guess.
No, I guess it will not work out.
I mean, maybe for some. So the funny thing about is when you look at like Facebook, I've been all over Facebook, Instagram, and people are posting it, and people don't even take the time to read the article or see what the source is. They just go out with the instant response, and they're like, "Fuck that shit," and they're instantly pissed off at the Marine Corps, right?
100%.
What Clay just said is, it's not even the Marine Corps' choice. It's a congressional mandate that the Marine Corps is and has been dragging their heels on for a really long time.
Do we know who was pushing this and if they are part of the Marine Corps military?
Not right now.
The current commandant is the one who did the press release and said that they are considering closing one or both, and either having two East Coast, West Coast MCRDs that are fully capable of both genders simultaneously co-ed training, or one that does everyone. That's what he said.
So, but my question is not so much of the location. I can get over the location. There will always be a sense of pride that I came from Parris Island. I was created in Parris Island and as a Marine. But as far as the co-ed boot camp, because that's coming from Congress, do we know specifics on who really pushed that?
Somebody's lobbying for it somewhere that has more power, and I don't believe that the current commandant would want that. I mean, I don't know. He's got to be old school to some extent.
I know that there are articles came out recently that members of Congress didn't even know. Senators didn't even know. Especially South Carolina politicians have said that they do not want that base closed. That base is a huge part of the local economy and the lifestyle and the community. And for them to have that base go away would change the landscape of South Carolina significantly. So the local politicians do not want it to happen, and they are fighting for it not to happen. So I know that's kind of breaking news.
But I want to get so you don't know any different than being at Parris Island, right, Rochelle? So what would it mean to you, A, if that closed, and B, for you to go through fully integrated training now? I want to know how it would make you feel if that's how it was, because we talked about it, on some shows in the past, but I kind of alluded to this being a possibility, right? So I'm just curious, what needed to change, I guess, to where you would feel comfortable training around 30 other dudes with 29 other females?
I've been thinking about this all day because I don't want my reflection of this to be every female Marine, but of the females I communicate with and we actively talk about this, it's not the location. Like I said, I respect and can appreciate the economy and everything you had just mentioned and the importance of that remaining where they are today. The location would not matter to me. It would be a part of the old core, right? Where I'd say I'm a Parris Island Marine and people would know that I'm from a later generation like you.
Yeah.
The co-ed thing is really what kind of gets to me. And as you had mentioned, we've talked about it before. And I guess the only thing, and this is, again, just my perspective, and again, some female Marines that I've talked to, just to give you an idea. So you had boot camp. When I was in, you had boot camp and it was fully female, Parris Island, 4th Battalion. That's all you could go to. And then straight from that, you go to MCT, and that is co-ed. From the time I was recruited, I experienced sexual harassment. The only time that I didn't was boot camp. And then right into MCT, I experienced it. And then from then on, I did as well. Is that the experience of every female Marine? I can't say that. But what I'm getting at, and one thing that just sticks to me that really bothers me about it, and why I specifically asked who is asking for this co-ed training, is for that 13-week period, I had instructors that were all females that taught me, could train me specifically, not just on the mentality of being a Marine, which is important because you are changing your entire life to become and have that mentality of a Marine, and not to separate the two, but then they also taught you about what you'll experience as a female Marine. And of everybody I've talked to, we've had a lot of the same experiences, but for 3 months, I had some just badass, awesome women that I could look up to, and I'll remember every single one of their names. And my fear is, I'm so thankful I had that.
Yeah.
And it was just females, and it was just, this is not only what you'll go through as a Marine, but then here's specifically what it's like as a female Marine. And I don't care who you are, there is a difference. Being a female, you just have different experiences, and to have that 3 months to prepare you as much as you can for what it's going to be like for that other 4 years, or how many other years you are serving. I'm so terrified, not terrified, that's not the word that I want to use, but I'm saddened because I can't see how that would work. I mean, you're in your squad bays with your drill instructors and your senior DIs, and there'd be times where they would sit on the foot lockers and just say, let me tell you my experience, let me tell you what you can expect. It's an unfortunate truth, but let me tell you how to be different and represent female Marines. And how do you do that with a co-ed? Because it didn't happen in MCT. That never happened. I don't remember any of my instructors' names. But for my Parris Island experience, I do. Now, that being said, and I'm not trying to take up the whole time because I'm so passionate about this, I do not see any issue with the training aspect. I think it's good to have a co-ed training experience because that will be your life in the Marine Corps. From then on, you will always be with Marines. You'll always be outnumbered by male Marines. And so you should have land nav, you should have MIGMAP, you should have all of the training courses. I am not against that co-ed experience, but I still don't understand. I have not heard how are just the female instructors kind of guiding those young female recruits, preparing them for what's going to happen for their service. And so that's kind of something that's been weighing on my heart, is they're never going to have the experience that I and so many other female Marines have had. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't have that. They didn't prepare us. They were like, you know what, this is what it is. Like there was very few heart to hearts that I had in boot camp that I can recall. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it could take away from that. It could detract from that to prepare you what you're going to see, right? Did you have any heart to hearts like, hey, the Marine Corps is going to be like this for you, right?
So there's a couple things there. The reaction of the Marines, you've got the first reaction is, I think Marines are rooted in tradition. So closing 200-plus-year-old bases, Parris Island's been training Marines since the 1800s.
1890s.
And so closing that, Marines, we always talk about improvise, adapt, and overcome. But when it comes to adapting to change, we don't like it. We want to stay rooted in tradition. So closing the 2 bases, it's like the first thing we all say is no, don't want it to happen. Then you get into the politically correct side of it, and you have a lot of Marines who still believe that females shouldn't even be in the Marine Corps, especially the infantry. So you have a lot of Marines that fight that tooth and nail. So there's a lot of guys who will say that they do not want, like you hear, there's so many jokes about you go to Parris Island, that's where they train the female Marines. They constantly talk about that. So they separate MCRD San Diego with Parris Island because of where the females are trained. Now you're saying we're going to train females at all the recruit depots. So that becomes a problem for a lot of Marines. But the politically correct thing that we don't address was what Rochelle just talked about is, as long as the standard is the standard, whoever is able to meet that standard should be able to earn the title Marine.
100%.
You should never lower the standard to allow more people to enter the Marine Corps because of whatever race, gender, whatever it is. The standard should never be lowered to allow somebody because of some reason. But as long as the standard is met, then that person should be able to earn the title Marine as established by the Marine Corps. That's my belief. But what is not addressed, and that's the politically correct side, is what Michelle just talked about, is the actual personal experience that male Marines and female Marines or recruits have while they're training.
That's it.
And when you put the 2 genders together, you can't avoid, you put 18-year-old girls and 18-year-old boys together in close proximity. We're biologically wired to be attracted to each other, and it becomes a distraction. And especially at that age, I'm 20 years older than the age I was when I went in boot camp. So my maturity level is 20 years past what I was when I was 18. If I had female recruits in my platoon while I was training to be a Marine, my focus would not be 100% on what I was doing, and vice versa. It becomes diluted with, now I've got the drill instructor yelling at me, but now I got this smoking hot chick walk by. That's just what it is. And if you can't be honest about that, then you're always going to fail and fall short of what it should be, I believe. And you have to address it. And I think when it comes to the team mentality, the standard should be set. But I think from a true being honest with ourselves, that's the part of the individual that the Marine Corps and military in general should address is this the best way to make Marines by putting them completely together and treating them as peers in every aspect when it just biologically isn't really the case.
Well, and here's something interesting about what you said, and I will combat it. Because when we talk about effectiveness, you might hear my kid in the background. Sorry about that. But if we're talking about true effectiveness, and if I struggle with the idea, because I am open to female Marines being a part of combat MOSs, and I've talked to female Marines, not in my generation because it wasn't allowed in my generation, but they are starting to be part of combat MOSs. But when you talk about effectiveness, I do truly believe if the training is working even if you are an 18-year-old, I would hope, but I also understand your point, but I would hope that the true effectiveness and the combat training and everything we go through teaches you to not look at an individual and say, that person is hot and I'm going to focus the attention on that person. That's the idea that I believe Congress goes with, where you should be training Marines to be X, Y, and Z. But to your point, I was 19 years old when I went through MCT, which had a co-ed experience. I know you were in SOI, so you never really had that. And it just biologically, almost every single, I don't want to say every single female, but a majority of females, there is that, it happens, and you never take away from what you're truly trying to do. You're trying to be a Marine, you're trying to do these great things, but then you're also very hormonal, and males haven't seen females in a long time. Females certainly have not seen the males in a long time. So it does take away from the true training of it, where you're not really focusing. I feel like I'm rambling.
You are.
No,
I am, because I'm so.
No, but you make a lot of good points, and you can tell that you are
weeks,
passionate about it, and that's why we want to let you.
That 13 weeks was so critical in my time. And again, I'm not saying that the training, I could see the training aspects, have them be integrated, because you have to start introducing us to each other at some point. So it's not this big shock when you go into the fleet, because as a female, to give you an idea, in my unit, and specifically the where I served, I was one of 3 female Marines. And so you have to be okay with the concept that you're going to be surrounded with both sexes, and you have to respect each other. And I don't feel like there's a lot of that. But the boot camp experience specifically, I would never, ever, ever want to go back and say, I wish it was co-ed, because that prepped me, that gave me personal time with strong females that had a moral standard, whether they actually lived up to it or not. I will always believe that my 4 drill instructors, or my 3 and my senior DI, had the most upstanding moral standard, and this is how a female Marine should be. And they reinforced that for 13 weeks of my life. That changed me as a human being. And you just cannot have that when you have a co-ed. Maybe you can have that at nighttime when you're doing square away, and they can talk to you in that time. But even my question would be, how many would be female? And then really, is the focus specific on your experience of what you'll go through as a female in the Marine Corps? And I just don't believe it will be. And my heart breaks for future female Marines to not have that badass woman experience for 13 weeks. I'm sorry. That's just my thoughts on it.
No, it's all good points and great experience. And that's exactly why I asked you to be on this episode, is because I didn't want Clay and I to just have the male perspective and our opinions on it. I wanted it to be a well-rounded opinion. And that is exactly why I asked a senior drill instructor who was a drill instructor at Parris Island to be on the show. He couldn't make it here in person, but he sent us a little video clip. We'll watch it real quick right now, and then we'll give you our thoughts on it. So go ahead.
I'm one of the few Marines that spent 2 tours at Parris Island. One as a recruit, the second as a drill instructor. Class 2-94. I trained 6 platoons. A-hat, E-hat, senior drill instructor. I did it all. When I heard that Parris Island may be closing, it saddened me. I have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on those parade decks, the pits, and the quarter decks, as many of you do. It saddens me. But the Marine Corps has been changing a long time. We have to accept change. The bottom line is we have to remain resilient, that the Marine Corps is and always will be the elite force of America's armed forces. And I'm all for that. Can I get an hoorah?
So that was Senior Drill Instructor White giving his input on the Marine Corps closing Parris Island or San Diego. He was a Parris Island drill instructor, so obviously he has a personal connection to that. And I liked his take on it, that in the end, the mission of being the best of the fighting forces is what our job is and what we want to take pride in. And we need to be able to adapt to any change and continue to change with the times. And, you know, we just lost tanks recently. That sucked, and that threw us all for a loop. Changing boot camp is obviously a big change, and that's going to throw us all for a loop. But, I mean, the Marine Corps has been around for almost 250 years, and I've only experienced a small segment of it. How many other changes have happened before I was even alive that are similar to what we're going through now? So to us, this seems like a big deal, but in the broad lifetime of the Marine Corps, is it really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
As long as the Marine Corps remains and is still the best fighting force in the world, where we go to boot camp and how we do it is a small part of it. And as long as we maintain that high standard, then I think we're still good to go. But to jump back onto your talking about the co-ed side of MCT or how you transition to training, I don't have the answers on that. I only have my experience with how it affected Marines while in combat. We were in Iraq for 7 months, and while we were leaving our post, an Army unit was taking over. And so this Army unit was significantly larger than our unit. They were expanding the size of our base by like 4 times, and they were just soldiers everywhere, right? Well, that meant there were female soldiers on our base. And that was the first time a lot of us had seen females for the last almost 7 months. And I can tell you from experience, Marines lost their goddamn minds when a female walked by.
But let me ask you something, because I did FET work in Afghanistan, and you just said I hadn't seen a female for 7 months. Well, what if you had seen a female? Because I have never been so respected by grunts that had trained with me, that had knew me, my personality. They understood the respect of that. And so I had an entirely different experience where I have never been so respected by grunts than when I actually trained with them. So that might be a thing because you were away from them for 7 months, and I totally get that. 100%. Any person that's away from the opposite sex is going to be like that. But I will stand by that.
And that's why I wanted you on this episode, because you just provided a different perspective that I was not aware of. And that's what I like. I like the different perspective. I like to be able to change my mind a little bit, because I don't want to be so narrow that I only see it from one point of view. I want to be able to see it from multiple point of views so that I can be mature about my opinion on things. So I appreciate that, because you're absolutely right. Had we had female Marines or female soldiers from the point that we landed in Iraq through our entire deployment, it wouldn't have been this, oh my God, I hadn't seen a chick in 7 months. Now there's one there. And like
anything. It's amazing.
1,000 Marines are going to go try to court this chick because, hey, we haven't seen women, and that she looks pretty great.
You end up treating them like little sisters at that point. If you train around them and do everything, you end up taking care of them more so, because it's like how it was ingrained. I've talked to people that are in the wing and stuff.
I will say this. So even you gentlemen, you Marines saying big brother, that bothers me, because the mentality, so here's where I struggle, right? So the mentality is, and I completely understand it, there's a female there and there's almost this need to protect. And I will tell you also as a female, and I'm not speaking for every female Marine, but for myself, I never joined with that mentality that I hope somebody protects me. I knew what I was signing up for. I knew there was a war. And so while I can appreciate that, I mean, it's a very kind gesture that you would have that mentality, but I'd like you guys to break yourselves from that, and also future Marines to break themselves from, you don't have to think of me as a little sister. You don't have to think of any other female Marine as a little sister. We joined the world's finest fighting force not to have people have that mentality, to think of us as equals. So we don't need that. But at the same time, I keep going back to that 13 weeks was absolutely critical. You're broken down as a human being and you're built back up. And to have people like you who, as a female, we're females, and have had experiences that you will never have, that Clay will never have, it was absolutely critical in my making as a female Marine, as a Marine in general. It was so critical, and I will always stand by that. I'm not against it, but I'm just kind of saddened that it's viewed any other way. I'm saddened that it's viewed as a sexist thing, or because I truly didn't believe that. I mean, they were just as hard on us, and they expected just as much out of us. Yeah. So I'll just keep going back to that I'm saddened. I am truly saddened that I truly don't believe that female Marines in the future will get that type of experience that I and so many other female Marines had.
It's going to take a cultural shift, though.
Yes.
Because historically, warfighting has been the men's job. From Civil War, from as
Yep.
far as time has went, that is tradition. So you're
Yep.
breaking 250 years of tradition.
Millions of years.
Millions. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you see
literally.
didn't have, their wives didn't fight, right? So this is legitimately the first time in history that is a potential. So there's going to be people have issue with it. And I've talked to you about it before. If you have a male Marine, another male Marine, and a female Marine in a fighting position all at once, and you have the male Marine and the female Marine get shot first, which one will the men naturally gravitate to? It's going to be the
female.
Exactly. So it's nothing that is inherent in our DNA. I think that is just what we do. It's not, I'm not trying to offend you by calling a little sister, but it is an inherent thing that we are ingrained to do. It's like, it is to protect, to be a protector of our families, protector of our brothers, and even more so a protector of our sisters. So that is how. And
there's other things that are coming to factor, you know what I mean? Like a 50 cal machine gun doesn't get lighter because it's a female carrying it.
Yeah.
I mean, biologically, there's just, there are some super strong females out there. I've gone to CrossFit gyms and been embarrassed by girls smoking me completely, and I'm like, damn, hats off to you. You are strong. However, on a average, when you hand a group of Marines who are half female, half male, and say 20-mile hump, 50 cal on your back, go. It's just facts that a female Marine 9 times out of 10 is not going to be as strong as a male Marine to carry that 50 cal. That's just the way it is. So when you come to that kind of stuff, there are physical requirements that combat just expects out of you. And men tend to be more physically suited for that. And that's another thing that's not opinion. That's just, when you break down the scientific facts of a situation, that's just the truth. And you need to, anytime you make a decision like this, I think you can't allow the politically correct side of things to trump the facts or science behind something. So we also have a quote from a retired colonel, Red Clay.
Yeah, she's a lieutenant colonel that was over 4th Battalion for a stretch of time on Parris Island. She pretty much, in a nutshell, said that leaders have to be explicitly clear as to why they're making this change, because her worry is that male Marines are going to end up blaming women for the loss of tradition. And I think there's
merit to that, because there already are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
can see it.
that's, I literally started this conversation asking who is making this change? Are they Marines? Have they gone through the experience of a female Marine? Because again, the training aspect, I'm 100% for. You should be introducing from the very beginning as you're breaking these people down and building them into Marines. But there are so many different aspects from an emotional, mental side. You gonna edit that out? Don't. I burped. But there's so many things that
You
I
gotta pay extra for me to edit.
But to my point, there's so many things that as a female Marine I am thankful for, I would never take back, and I'm saddened that other females will never get to experience. So that is my question of the day, is who is pushing for this change, and have they gone through the training to actually understand what they're doing? Have they gotten opinions of female Marines that have gone through it?
We already know the answer to that question, but it's never the trigger puller that starts the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
is.
It's the young kids who fight the war for the old man who starts the war.
Yeah.
And it's never for the right reason. So it's
And
the same
that
thing with the
can
Marine
make
Corps.
this-
It's not a combat veteran, 20-year retired Marine that said, you know what? Having looked back at my 20 years in, here's the things that I think need to happen to change the Marine Corps for the better. That's not what happens.
And that's my biggest fear is, was this brought up to some Congress person and by somebody who hasn't actually been through this experience and just said, did you know that there's still integration here? And there was no, it was just, hey, it's 2020. We should all be integrated. This is how it should be. And I don't agree with that. I absolutely do not agree with that.
But I almost guarantee you it was somebody that hasn't been through it.
That's my thing. It was
guarantee
literally the first thing I asked you, is who is pushing for this change? Because I really don't feel like if I was a congresswoman, I would push for integrated training. I would not push for a lot of the other things. It's 13 freaking weeks of training. And there's so many times that it should just be for females specifically, with female instructors.
Let me ask you this. How are your showers in boot camp? Do you just have a bunch of shower heads sticking out? And y'all all went in there naked with your towels
but that's irrelevant to me.
I'm curious.
He needs to know.
It
Look
is.
at his face.
I think I told you about my experience where we had, so there's women testing, right? To your point, when we talk about the differences.
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. How are the showers at female boot camp?
I feel like it's the same. Literally, it's the same. But I think that I've talked about an experience where females have to go through gynecological testing.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, that's irrelevant because in MCT
That's no
we
different
didn't
than
shower
what we had
together.
to do.
That doesn't have anything to do with the showers, gal.
That is, we
The
had to go through
shower
the same
is the
thing.
same.
I had to
There's
get,
20 shower
showered
heads
with-
sticking out. So whenever you guys came back in from PT, towels
There
above
was a
your head,
pole.
everybody naked.
There was a pole.
yeah, it's called the
We didn't
rain
have
room.
any pool handles.
There was
They
like
turned
Called the
three
rain
poles.
room, and you did a wagon wheel around it.
Yes, and you held your towel above your head, and you just turned around and did a PT shower, all of you butt naked. And so I just don't see how a PT shower is going to happen. I don't see how any of that stuff is going to
That's
happen.
irrelevant. That to me
No,
is
these are
irrelevant because
logistical
in
problems.
MCT,
These are
MCT, it was not, we slept in different squad bays, we showered differently. They have that handled. That is, to me, is
That's not
totally
integrated.
irrelevant.
Michelle, that's not integrated. That's not females being in the
MCT
same
is
squad base.
integrated.
It is not.
It's
I
like
didn't claim
what's
this
that
out any
movie,
female MCT.
Starship Troopers.
They were there with us, and they were doing evolutions, but they were not integrated in our platoons whenever I went through.
They have that covered. So you're talking
They didn't
about
even
the
shower
04.
in the same facility, though. They had their
Yeah.
own.
Clay needs to know how the showers are going to happen.
But that's what I'm getting
He
at.
needs to know.
It's
Do you have a
totally
platoon?
different. You're not going to do that. I mean, that's entirely different. And then they have that figured out.
Do
I
they?
know.
We turned this
Yes,
into an
they
hour-long
do.
video so you could learn about showers.
I know.
I've been
You
waiting
just
this whole
want
show.
to envision men and women showering together, and you can look on Pornhub.
But
They
without
have
the
it
tension,
figured
though,
out.
like I'm saying, you're saying it would, like, no. These kids,
We
these are
do
all
that
off the
kids.
rails.
separately.
These are all
Wait,
kids.
wait, wait. We do that separately. We did that in MCT. They have that figured out. The whole hygiene thing is not, it's irrelevant to me. They have that figured out because of MCT. They can pull from that experience and say, this is how you do it, right?
Not with the
That
current
hasn't-
facilities.
Well, that's why they're closing San Diego
Exactly.
and Parris Island is because. Are you telling me that you can't take
closing Parris Island?
rational? How much money
So
does
far-
the Marine Corps have, and you can't just freaking build a barracks that has separate showers? Is that
That's
it?
what they're
It's the
talking
only reason that we're closing Parris Island is because we can't shower together. Like, I feel like we could figure that out.
I mean, shit, let them do it. I mean, hell, I wish it was that way whenever I was in. Now, the more we talk about it. I mean, let's be
No, you
honest.
don't. No, you don't.
It takes.
It's nasty. Like,
You don't want
I,
to go. You don't want to go PT with a bunch of dudes and a bunch of women, and then put us all stanky ass together.
I've told
showering.
Rochelle
There's
I could
nothing-
smell the
there's
female tent
100%
whenever we went by at MCT.
There's nothing sexy about
yeah.
that at all. That is
Female tent at
disgusting.
MCT was the worst thing I've smelled. I told Rochelle that on another show. Like, you walk by the female's tent at MCT, you don't get to shower at MCT.
No, terrible.
It was the worst ever. Like, we stunk as men. Like, we kind of like get that, but no, it was horrible. So
It's entirely different with females. There's an entirely different stink. Like when I look at pictures of boot camp, I don't see them, I smell them. Like I can smell the experience.
Wow.
he's got a point.
All I'd say is wow. Hey, but you know that they're scientific, so I'm always going to go back to science because that's like my thing.
Yeah.
There is a study that talks about how science says that memory is triggered more by smell than anything else. Do you know that?
My experience in the Marine Corps is triggered by smell.
It's true. So like there are certain plants that are planted all around, or not planted, but just grow naturally on Camp Pendleton. And there are times where I'll be driving down the road or be out in the wild, whatever, in the woods, and I'll smell something and be like, that smells
Immediately.
just like Camp Pendleton. And I'll be right back on the range, or right back in the field, or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's real.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm a fan of if this whole thing pans out. Make a third place to train everybody, but don't take away Parris Island. And don't take away MCRDC.
No, the actual
Thank
place. Well, I don't want it to go away just because of the economic impact on these, cities and things like that. But to be honest with you, that impacts me less than the actual co-ed experience. I'll always stand by that, the feelings that I've expressed today. The actual locations, you talk about Old Corps all the time, and you take pride in it. And I take pride in, I didn't have a co-ed experience, and that will be my Old Corps. And I am a new Old Corps to a new generation of Marines. But from an economic standpoint, hell no, I don't want them to move it. I don't understand why they would. I mean, you have West Coast Marines. If they're male or female, you're going to integrate them. Okay, have them go to the West Coast. And then, the Mississippi
You can't
is,
tell me that it's cheaper to build a huge brand new base than it is to just put another set of showers.
So I think there's
At
something.
Parris Island.
There's something to be a mystery.
I like how this keeps going back to showers.
Because
It's not about showers this time. This
what is the
about-
other reason? What is the other reason
You
that we
guys
can't
do
co-ed
not
train?
want-
No.
Oh my
You can
God.
do everything else together at Parris Island except for shower together. That is the only thing you can't do together.
We showered together. Do you guys think that we got, like, they let us in, like, filtered us in, like,
No, I'm saying
Not with the
no, I
dude
have
every
50
other one.
women with me.
You didn't do it with a dude every other guy.
I didn't do that
Nope.
at Camp Geiger in North Carolina.
That's what I'm saying. That's
They
what I'm
figured
saying
that
about
out.
That's what I'm saying about San Diego and Parris
Yeah.
Island. Is if they want co-ed training, you can do literally everything at San Diego and Parris Island that you could already with males and
Yes,
females.
It's the same
The
thing.
only
Our
thing you
squad
can't
days-
do is sleep next to each other and shower next to each other. And I'm pretty sure you can figure that out and keep the base
Dude,
at Parris
Firewatch.
Island.
Boot Camp Firewatch is going to be pretty damn interesting, I would assume, if they're fully
No,
lights out.
you.
Yes, it
did
will
not-
be.
No, it will not.
100%.
You would have
That's what
squad
Marines
days.
get.
You know what?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I just thought of? Here's what I just
thought.
thought of. Remember in boot camp where you dump your foot lockers and everybody throws their underwear right in the middle of the pile? And then you have to run and grab whatever pair of underwear you can find and put it back in your foot locker? What's going to happen when it's co-ed?
I bet you.
You know
my
there's going to be
underwear-
some dudes who are going to be grabbing women's undies. It's going to happen.
Guys,
It's going to happen.
stop, because MCT, from that perspective, from a sleeping, from a hygiene, we were integrated, but there's still, you're in a all-female squad bay. That will never be the case where we're in the same squad bay. If that were the case, I'd have an entirely different perspective on this. I would just be flat out, no, this is BS. No part of it should be integrated. MCT has it figured out from at least from the, sleeping and all that stuff. So don't convince yourself that that's the reason why we shouldn't fully integrate, because again, I'm kind of like hybrid on this. But no, I'm adamantly against what you both are saying. From the sleeping and the hygiene should always remain separate, because we're young, we're stupid,
Yes.
and we're all hormonal, and that's the fact of the matter. Yeah.
Well, I think somebody needs to define what integration actually means, because to me, integration,
Yes.
you have 30 on one side and 30 on the other. You're in the same squad bay, same facility, same everything. To me, that's integration. Everybody together.
Is
It's
that
not
how the
having
Army is?
females on follow and males on lead, because to me, that's not integrated training. If you're going to truly be together and truly get this male to female bond and peer, you need to be together all the way through. You don't need to be sleeping in a squad bay 30 feet away to get that camaraderie. I think if you're going to gain that camaraderie, you have to be together. I don't know a single female that I went through MCT with. Didn't care. I've seen them a few times and that was it. You know what I'm saying?
How many
I'm just being
females
honest.
were you at MCT with?
Do I now?
What was the percentage of females to males at MCT?
There was like 6 platoons of dudes and 1 platoon of females, something like that.
Okay.
So they weren't integrated at all?
They had their own tent, their own thing. They never trained with us. They didn't go throw grenades with us. They didn't go shoot a Mark 19 with us. They didn't do anything. They were doing
I
their own
did.
program.
I was integrated.
So you were humping parts
I was
of
humping with male Marines.
it was never like that whenever I was in 2000. Never. They had their own program. And so that's why that's where I wasn't understanding all this stuff, because it wasn't.
Yeah, and I will say this to you, and going back to my original point, because I started this out and said I hadn't experienced sexual harassment until I got to MCT. I experienced that from one of my male instructors, and then from then on, I can give you examples of just flat out sexual harassment that I experienced, okay?
Yeah.
But
Now, sexual harassment, do you mean like someone made you feel uncomfortable, or they did something to like use their rank to like kind of initiate something that you didn't want? Or, I mean, what was it?
the latter of what you just said. And I'm not using that as the core of why I truly feel like we should still have an all-female drill instructor team, train the females, because from the Marines themselves, the Marines I trained with, they were phenomenal. My MCT experience is entirely different because it was integrated. If I was in the field, I was in the field with the males, and they did have some type of separation because I feel like they understand teenagers are teenagers and that's the way it's going to be. So you have to have that separation, and I can appreciate that. It was actually the instructors that were worse than the males coming up. And so that's, if we're getting to the core root of what truly terrifies me, I can think of my recruiting experience where I was sexually harassed. I can think of my MCT, and I can think of my MOS training, and then obviously the fleet as well. And that's why I'm just so thankful for my boot camp experience, because it was just strong ass females. So,
but to that point, if it's integrated to the same way as MCT was, even for me, see that's where my disconnect is. If it's integrated still the same way, even if you have platoon 2060 is male, platoon 2061 is female, different squad bay, you can still have your individualized female drill instructor experience. And then you could still somewhat be integrated in the company evolutions that you do, right?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So in that instance, we could use the same installments. But if you're talking, I don't see why you're talking about shutting them down, because they say it's going to be cheaper to build a brand new base than to retrofit both of these into something that's capable of having gender integrated training. So
I think the new commandant is pulling a fast one on all of us, and they just want a bigger budget to build a better base.
They're trying to get people to re-enlist, man. That's what they're
thinking about. Like, maybe he's smarter than all of us, and he's like, you know what? Just don't tell them
this
that
doesn't
actually
work.
do it. Because how many years has the Marine Corps been doing more with less? That is our heritage. Since the beginning, we've done more with less. And this new commandant, he's like, fuck that shit. I have the ability to get Congress to give us, the Marine Corps, more money and build me a better base than what we've had for the past 200 years. Fuck it. I'm in. Tell them we can't do it this way. Build me a new base. And we're about to get these new junior Marines are going to get something badass. And we just don't even know about it. And we're over here
talking shit
about it. And that commandant's like,
yeah. I'm still going to talk shit about it.
I got a plan. I can't tell you what the plan is until I get the check signed.
Isn't there pride in the fact that we do more with less?
100%.
I mean, there's so much pride in being a Marine, and there's all these jokes that we get secondhand shit, but we're still, regardless of what you ask people, the Marines are the best. And it's not because we're trained to think that way. It's, you look at the stories in Marines, and we are the best. We're just the best.
Amen to that.
We're the best.
Yeah.
I was going to call you little sister, but you don't like that. So I'll just say amen.
Easy. Don't do that.
I'm an equal sister to your brother.
You are 100% equal. We appreciate you having you on the show. Thank you for all of your input and all of your opinions and your experience. I think it added a lot of value to this episode, and I hope the 100%. Viewers thought so as well. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now because we went way over the time that we normally try to do, and that was our fault as the host and the moderator. But anyways.
As male Marines, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to be in charge of this shit, and we just let it go.
Yeah. You're supposed to
Well, we started talking about females showering at boot camp, and the whole show just fucking took a left turn. So anyways, we like to try to wrap up the show with a little positive note. And the one that we've been kind of trying to reiterate and go over and over again is the importance of reaching out to your buddies, reaching out to your fellow Marines, female Marine, male Marine, whatever it is, what have you. There is way too many. One Marine suicide is too much, and we've way more than that, and that's not okay. And push-ups is not doing it. It's not changing anything. So we need to start looking at what really does change it. And some of the ideas that we've come up with is to call your buddies, check in, legit, find out how they're doing. And don't talk surface level crap. Don't say, how's the weather? How you doing? How's the family? None of that. get in there and ask for real. How are you doing, man? How are you doing, girl? Like, what is it? And tell me the real shit, and be willing to listen, be willing to put in the time, and have each other's back. And sometimes you don't have to have the answers. You don't have to have the advice. Sometimes you just need to be patient and listen and hear what they have to say, because that's important. Just having someone to validate what you're going through is huge sometimes. And Clay mentioned, go ahead and tell your little story.
Yeah, one of my closest friends listened to the show last week, and that's like the whole positive message, right? He said he called and talked to a brother he hadn't talked to and connected with him over Facebook. He hadn't talked to him in 15 years, had a phone conversation with him for a few hours the other night. They just sat around, drank and talked on the phone and called up. So you never know. You never know which one of your buddies that haven't heard from you, or maybe it's something you need to hear. But reach out. Facebook is a hell of a tool. I always say social media is basically the devil, but there's one thing that it's good for.
Well, it is the devil, but it brought us together.
Absolutely. We're totally
You two
Instagram
are
friends.
just
We're all Instagram friends.
Our wives are like, you fucking assholes. You spend more time on the phone together than you do with us.
not me. They're not talking about me.
No, we're talking
Just
about
for clarity.
that one.
Yeah. But I think that's important to say is if we can meet anybody and you're instantaneously family. So it's not just those that you served with. If somebody reaches out,
It's so true. It's happened to me.
it's just instantaneous.
I can't even tell you how many times it's happened. When I was in New York on September 11th, went to check out the lights at the Freedom Tower and did a little Instagram live, showed the lights in the background. We talked about why we remember September 11th. And I got a message on Instagram from a Marine I had never met before, just followed our page. And he said, hey man, I live 10 blocks from where you were just at. If you're still in New York, hit me up, we'll go have a beer. So I went and had a beer with this cat, never met him before in my life. And my wife was like, you're just gonna go meet this complete stranger? And I'm like, he's not a stranger. He is a brother.
He's a brother. Absolutely.
We shed the same sweat, tears, and blood together in the same family. And hell yeah, I'm going to go meet this cat because he's probably going to add something to my life that I needed in this moment. And He did, 100%. We went, sat at the bar together, and literally within 30 seconds, it was like I knew this dude forever. We were
I have so many
sharing
stories.
war stories, and we left the bar. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We walk across the street and there's this little place and they sell jerk chicken. He buys me some jerk chicken. And not only does he buy me jerk chicken, there was a homeless person sitting on the sidewalk and he buys that guy dinner as well. And I'm like, look at this dude, like just proving time and time again that Marines just are all about doing the right thing. And I was so proud of him and I was glad that he invited me out. I'm glad that he reached out. And I think that's so important. Like if you see another Marine, reach out, even if he's not someone you know, like just look out for each other.
She, yes.
All.
Just say Semper Fi.
All of them.
That's
Semper
it.
Fi.
You can always see a smile when you say Semper Fi. You see him with a hat, Semper Fi.
That's right.
I love it. I always say that. It catches them. They're like, whoa, Semper Fi.
You see him wearing one of these fantastic shirts from Leatherneck for Life.
Or one that says Parris Island, which
Hey!
may end up being a relic. But at least it's still relevant now.
Where are you not representing, Rochelle?
Because I'm outside and it's cold, and then I have no cold weather gear from you.
Well, hit me up. I'll send you some cold weather gear. Tell me what you want. I will send it your way. And the next time you are on our podcast, which hopefully will be soon, hopefully it'll be sporting. So anyways, again, thank you for watching. Thank you, Clay, as always. You complete me. And thank you, Rochelle, for, look at that.
Do you guys want me to leave?
Could you give us a minute?
Do you want me?
It's a good thing you're here. No, it's not a sword fight. This is not boot camp.
This is you guys.
We don't play swords. We don't play
Yes,
swords.
it is. Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
Easy,
Thank
Killer.
you.
Thanks
All
for
right.
being on here.
see you guys.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for the